Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA Daily Analysis. NVIDIA took a little dip today as I predicted. So as I mentioned yesterday that after 6 days of upside in a row, a drop was expected. In this video, we'll discuss the price range for NVIDIA before the earnings using technical charts and fundamentals. We'll also discuss if this is still a good time to buy Nvidia stock before earnings. Let's get started. Starting with the daily summary, Nvidia opened at 128.40. It made a high 129.88. It made a low 125.89 and it closed at 127.25. That is 2.12% down. So 6 days in a row positive closing. Now today negative closing. Last 5 days, Nvidia is still up 7.39%. And last 1 month, Nvidia is up about 3%. And last 6 months, Nvidia is still up about 83.23%. So not just Nvidia, you can see the impact on overall market today. So S&P was down 0.20%, Nasdaq was down 0.33%, and Dow Jones were down 0.15%. As you remember, I mentioned yesterday and also Friday that after so many days of positive closing, there should be some negative closing either today or tomorrow. So that's what happened today. We'll also take a look if there was any news that caused the negative closing today. We'll discuss sometime later in this video. Now let's take a look forward P for Nvidia and other AI stocks. Nvidia forward P at this point is at 44.46, slightly higher than the last week closing, but is still higher than the last 7 weeks of average, and that's a good sign. Palantir forward P is at 95.06, slightly higher than the last week closing. SMCI 19.22, no big difference from the last week closing. AMD 43.69 versus last week 41.51. Not a major increase, but it's still better than other AI stocks. In my opinion, based on the forward PE, Nvidia should be moving between the forward P of 40 and 50 before the earnings. Let's calculate how much price point this forward P translates to. So I did some calculation. The price range that I came up with is 114.5 and 143. So Nvidia should be moving between these two numbers before the earnings. You might think that this is a big price range, but I expect some volatility before the earnings as well. But in my opinion, Nvidia should not go below 114 in next few days. I guess yesterday was a good time. I should have sold my Nvidia stocks and rebuy it probably when Nvidia can go further down. So I missed the opportunity yesterday. Now let's take a look some historical data analysis for Nvidia. So based on the cumulative percentage change, Nvidia is still above 34% from the previous earnings announcement, and that was done on 22nd May. In the last quarter, as we looked at yesterday, the cumulative percentage change was 38 before the earnings. So still Nvidia has some room to go, and based on the historical data analysis, Nvidia should not go above 134 before the earnings. Now, let's take a look at some technical charts for Nvidia. On your screen, you see 90-day hourly interval chart for Nvidia and also Fibonacci levels. At this point, Nvidia is at 125.89 after hours. The next level of support is 125.3 and after that 115. In my opinion, 115 is a strong support level. So it won't be easy for Nvidia to go below 115 before the earnings. On the upper side, Nvidia still has lots of room to go further up, but should not go above 140.5 based on the Fibonacci levels, and that was the all-time high as well. But based on my understanding, when I did correlation analysis for last 2 quarters, in last 2 quarters, Nvidia did some little correction or some drop before the earnings, just few days before the earnings. So that's why I said in this quarter, probably few days before earnings, we might see some kind of volatility or some drop on Nvidia. And Nvidia should gain further momentum after the earnings. And it will also depend on the earnings number. But I'm positive they should be able to report good numbers. Now let's take a look Bullinger bands. So based on the Bullinger band, you see that the gap between the upper band and the lower band is closing today. That tells some consolidation or sideways movement happening on Nvidia as I expected yesterday. And the upper side, if more stairs gonna be formed, then Nvidia should go and touch 140. But at this point, since Nvidia moved already 23% in last 6 days before today, so I'm not expecting Nvidia to touch 140 in next few days. But you never know, right? It's market, so anything can happen. Now let's take a look MACD. So if you take a look MACD chart, so last 5 days of positive momentum, you see the blue line was still up above zero level. But today, you see the blue line almost touching the zero line. And that's what I expected yesterday. So I had an opinion that after so many days of positive momentum above zero line, there should be some downward momentum or some slowdown either today or tomorrow. And this MACD line should be touching the zero line. And that's what we saw today. So tomorrow, based on MACD, Nvidia can go further down a little bit more, but not much. Now let's take a look some news regarding Nvidia. Now this is interesting. You know, since Nvidia is down today, you started seeing some news talking about some pessimistic view regarding Nvidia. For example, this one that says Nvidia is overvalued, says NYU professor of finance. So you might have noticed that whenever Nvidia goes up, you start seeing positive news about Nvidia. When Nvidia tries to go down, you see mixed or negative news regarding Nvidia. So that's what happens. You don't have to get influenced by these news too much because some news are agenda based. They are just trying to push you to a specific direction. So now again, this one that says Nvidia earnings and Jackson Hole hopium driving stock market higher, but market is overbought. So this news is also suggesting that market can go down more in next few days because it's overbought. So two negative news so far. Let's move on. Now this one is positive. That says Nvidia likely to see upside to quarterly results outlook Oppenheimer says. Another one that's about Taiwan, that's also positive, that says Taiwan semiconductor expands to Europe with $11 billion chip plant in Germany. The chip outlook or demand in the future is great, so they are working ahead to support the demand in the future. So now this one is trying to give us some warning that says Nvidia's earnings could be noisy, but these bulls are still upbeat on the stock. In my opinion, this news makes sense because, you know, at this time, I'm expecting a good sales revenue or guidance in the earnings call, but I'm not too much sure how much earnings beat or surprise they can report. And I think that they may not be able to do the same way that they did last quarter. I will do detailed analysis on the earnings beat expectation in another video before the earnings. Now again, this one is negative that says Nvidia stock edges down. Wall Street is pushing back against AI bubble fears. So some news again started talking about AI bubble that we saw sometime last week. So again, some news started talking about AI bubble, and we saw this kind of news when Nvidia was going down, probably before last week. So now this one is about politics and election that says Trump Harris election will affect markets. So that's not a rocket science. We all know that this can impact the market. You can write in the comment section what do you guys expect, what can happen before the elections. I guess that's all about Nvidia news for today. So you saw some positive, some negative news, so kind of mixed. Now let's take a look other AI stocks. You see some stocks are negative and some are positive today. The highest positive change you see on SoundHound that is 3.84%, and the highest negative change is Nvidia that is 2.12%. But in most of the stock you notice that the movement was not so high. So it was a slow day for most of the AI stocks. So after having some analysis today and yesterday, if Nvidia goes down further and tries to touch 115, probably around 115 would be a good buy if that happens. I'm not sure Nvidia can go down to that level before the earnings. So regarding the economic data, tomorrow we're gonna get minutes of FOMC meeting. So I will talk about it in my tomorrow's video. So that's all about NVIDIA analysis and assessment for today and rest of the week. I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more tomorrow. Take care.